Hello friends, welcome back for more daily Tezos technical analysis with me, your pal Rocky Outcrop. Now I make videos as well, by the way, for Bitcoin, Ethereum and Chainlink, so you check those ones out if you're interested. And as well, I'm on Twitter, and if you want to know my handle, it's Rocky_Outcrop. That underscore is important. Somebody else has taken Rocky Outcrop without the underscore, and up until today it was actually R Outcrop. I just changed it earlier on for the crack. Anyway, there we are. So we're back in the charts, and this is the versus Bitcoin prices, and we'll be taking a look at the versus the dollar prices in just a momento or two. As you can see here, there'll be some discussion about whether or not, you know, we've got sort of a little bit of a current high in just now. But over here in the Bitcoin prices, what are we looking at in terms of just looking left and where we've come as high as and whatnot, and just on this Fibonacci retracement here alone, this is a 24-hour chart I have up. I'll close this tab for now. We've come up to and touched this 50% retracement area in that 32,000 every day for the last few days, and we've kind of just sort of had this little phase of consolidating and having a wee think about things. Now, could we turn around here and put in sort of two questions really spring to mind? You know, could we put in a higher low at this point, or will we continue to trend towards the upside? If we consolidate like we did here for a wee while, this was just above support in a sense, whereas we're doing it kind of just below resistance. You know, if we did something like that for a wee while over here, yeah, you know, whatever, and that would be fine in a sense, so long as we actually do manage to make it above there and go on, negating the sort of the need for necessarily, you know, a lower low coming in, and that looks sort of wavy. But if we did have one, then I suppose we're looking down towards that 3,000 level and saying, can we maintain it above 3,000? That's what we want to see in the versus Bitcoin prices, because this was a previous area of the 382 that we looked at. If we look over to the left here, we can see the amount of wicks and whatnot have come in this area, and that's what we want to kind of see happening in terms of support, should we need to have that for us. So that would be good to see happening. If we did go below it, then I'm looking down towards the 21 here, where we have this consolidation phase. I don't want to break back to below this again, you know, and undo the entire move out of this and trace back down the way any further than we possibly have to. You know, 2,800 for me then is that line. And we spoke about 2,800 an awful lot of times back when we were down here at 2,400 and whatnot. We know that there's a couple of significant areas, and that's what we're looking at. There's a 200 simple, by the way, getting several dots on there. It's nice to see it developing. The volume has gone up a little bit, I suppose, on average over the last wee while compared to the wee while beforehand, which is okay to see, but I don't actually want to see this coming in here and doing too much negativity. If we did get a drop down though, what would it kind of look like just in terms of this shape here, right? We've got this high here in this side in a sense, and then you've got this one here, and that's kind of double toppy. At any point along the way here, you could get something like that, and you could say, oh, that's kind of, you know, you've got those two highs, and that's double toppy for us, right? And you could see this sort of this curved U-ish type shape here, and then we can see this volume kind of go along like that, and then picking up a wee bit on this side. So what you could kind of see any time as well when you look towards the oscillators and whatnot as well would be a kind of cup and handle type shape coming in here. If we saw this go down the way, and then we could maybe move towards the upside afterwards. So we kind of look towards that in the longer term as well. 3,000 or so maybe would be where we could see that coming in at if we had to have new lows as part of that phase, and how this might start to shape up overall with an increase in volume at this point here. If people did that sort of unthinkable thing of going long at previous highs in a sense or whatever. Of course, failing all of that and moving down a wee bit, then you could be looking at sort of an overall downward trend, and if the prices went below 2,400, then things would be brown trousers time for everybody again. So and of course that would be your target, I suppose, if you were to start shorting that. And how does this shape up here with these lines, just where we're looking at on the dollar prices? Well, we've come up to 230. over the weekend when we saw that prices go up to the highs, we were kind of asking, is that our highs? Is that going to be the highs? And how does all this shape up for us? And what have we got going on down below? So what is the current situation? First off, this is the 24-hour chart, of course, and on the RSI between this high and this high, no divergence. Good to see. 1-0 for the bulls. Little bit of divergence here potentially though on the stochastics. You know, of course, should the prices go down? This is all speculative. Speculative, I have to say. And I'm not a financial advisor. None of this financial advice. You know, always do your own research, yada yada. But if this were to go down here and form a local high, then you could be looking at having no divergence there, so that's 1-0 to the bulls, but divergence here in the stochastics, so that's 1 each. No divergence here on the DMI, and of course we're just getting to that 20 point here on the ADX. We want to see this push up a little bit, so going to have to give that one to the bulls, so 2-1, and then a bit of divergence potentially here on the MACD, so 2 each overall. But there's a couple of positive things here, and if this had to be the deciding factor, seeing this move above 20 and it would then push me over to say it's 3-2 in terms of the score for the bulls there. And in terms of the price action, of course, you've got this potential area of the top on this is strong and sloppily. Don't get too carried away looking at that. If it's going above it, that's fine, whatever. Overall, could this be some sort of descending wedge thing, or could it just be a channel? Really, it's all just, it doesn't strictly matter too much overall. I'm not the biggest fan of sort of basing all your trades off the chopsticks, but or fortune cookies for that matter. Do we want to have that line in there anymore? Well, suppose in a sense this 185 area is always going to be curious to us, but we could just kind of highlight this blue section here, suppose again, and say that we don't want to be going below 190 because that would be a lower low coming in, and that would be bad, so then let's look here and see. But we've got the 55 EMA, the green line, and the 21 EMA is just coming up to cross over that at this point just now, so that's good. That's good to see. Very positive here, and of course both those lines are at that $2 level as well. So if we did have to see a higher low, as we've been saying for a while, then $2 would be our sort of where we could negotiate and say, right, okay, fair enough, or accept that, but we want to see the prices turn around at that point, or else someone's bait and switched us and they're pushing us down a little bit, and we don't want to be caught wrong-footed there. So we'd be looking towards the 190s area again, should we get pushed past that, and be very concerned, of course, then if the prices break below those points, because we would then be looking down to things like 165, and you've got big percentage moves happening all over. If it did break down there, and you wouldn't want to necessarily just sort of live with that at the time if you didn't have to. However, there's this bottom part of this trend line here. We can just kind of just actually, instead of taking that off, let's just say instead, and is it better? Linear perhaps? Yes. Sorry. Let's just try and say that we've got some sort of wedginess on the go just now, and let's just sort of just to frame things negatively for ourselves, instead of looking at all that and thinking about where we could come down to catch the bottom of the channel, which is what we would have been looking at sort of 20 seconds ago. Instead, let's try and say, oh, we've got a wedge here, and there's this, I don't want to draw in from quite as high as that. Excuse me as I take a second here. Just sort of move this up a little bit, just so it's a little bit tighter. Let's just say we had some sort of measured move off the back of this thing like this. Where could that possibly take us to? And we'd be looking down at towards that 150 level again. Should you break down below this, and that would be when you'd be what people could be looking at and thinking at that time. And where could fake out territory take you to and whatnot would be that 188 level. So that's why we can kind of look at that as being our Alamo as well, and saying down here there's potential for turnarounds at 165, potential for turnaround at 155, potential again to go down to 148, and we don't want to necessarily experience that holding onto bags of longs necessarily as it goes down, either 10, 15 or 20% on one of those moves there at that point. So that's kind of what I'd be looking at. That's myself, my own personal thoughts, not a financial advisor or any of that. What did I just do there? Yeah, not a financial advisor, none of this financial advice, but that would be the sort of how things would be in a negative world. And before we get, that's why I say in terms of the negotiating team, we'd be happy enough to negotiate a level at say $2.02 and say, yeah, we could see the prices go as far as that, but but we wouldn't really want to consent to anything further past that. And should it go past 188, then we feel like there's been a breach of terms or whatever. So we'd have to call a veto. But yes, and then in terms of the upside, then okay, so that's enough of that negativity and thinking about all that. In fact, I'll just stick this back to a channel for now, so we can talk about our channel-esque thing. So we can talk about make it more channel-y, shall I? So we can talk about the, yeah, let's just say that was like that, in fact. So we can talk about the more positive scenario for us and what we could be looking at then, I suppose. And the questions come back in at that 230 level. If we can get up above 230, then we're doing a few things kind of overall at once, because we'll have the price action moving quite far away from the moving averages down below, which would increase the slope of them, of course, and make them look quite bullish. And if that happens in around the 1st of May as well, where we're looking at just, it's not too far away from where we are just now, then you know this price action over here, all of this chunk of price action here between the sort of the February to March time, will no longer be accounted for in this average. It would move it right quite up there as well, and you know, all these sorts of things would kind of happen, which could give you sort of little bits of bullish tastiness on the go at the same sort of time. So we're looking towards this 230, and what comes in at that area? Well, we have a 50% retracement line on that Fibonacci at 235, and another one at 247, and those could be a couple of targets, I suppose, for us in the meantime. Of course, we already know the 235 level fairly well, having come up there a few times. So really, I suppose it's more like looking at that 250 area and saying, can we get up towards there where we had our previous lows? Would we expect to see potentially profit taking happening around that area? Sure, we could. Easily could see it happening in there, where we've seen all these wicks coming in at below, and it's been an area of interest in the past. And no doubt if the VPVR was on, we'd see that kick back in for here in terms of that trading activity, as opposed to this dearth of trading activity which will happen in between here in this area, which again would make you say, in terms of like trying to do measured moves off the backs of channels and wedges and whatnot, to be doing that sort of thing with caution, because you could easily see a turnaround happen there. If you were doing a measured move, it'd probably be taking you up more like towards the $3 area. I'm not going to say it can't happen, just saying that that's vastly more greedy in terms of their risk reward than that smaller chunk at the start. And that'll have to do. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. And I do these videos daily. I may be the only person that does daily technical analysis on Tezos on YouTube. But so that's kind of interesting. I didn't really realize that before. And so that's great. So then maybe a lot of you guys out there have, and ladies, have watched these videos a bunch of time, in which case let me know in the comments down below and I'll give you a shout out, just like I did with Amit and Bobby recently. So yeah, anyway, cheers very much. It's great to have a community on the go here. I don't know how long I'll do Tezos videos for forever on the channel. Will it be one of these coins that suddenly, you know, you find that the whole world's interested in and everything in 6 months time, and it grows a whole bunch? Or will it just be one of these ones that eventually kind of we can maybe keep our eye on the sort of viewership levels of these particular videos over time and say, well, look, hey, if the only guy doing daily technical analysis videos for Tezos on YouTube's Tezos videos aren't growing in viewership numbers over time, then maybe there only really are a couple hundred folk out there who are at any given time interested in it, and it's just not worth doing, you know. But we'll see over the longer period of time. Don't want to be doomsaying, because I do feel positive about this coin. I think it's one that's going to pick up in interest, like we've seen with things like Chainlink over the last 18 months. So yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next episode. I've been Rocky Outcrop. We've been Rocky Outcropticians. Share this video with a friend if you've got one that you think would like it. See you next time.